The Honourable Member, Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I hope you can hear me now. First of all, I'd like to say that some previous speakers talked about growing the economy, and certainly New Zealand First supports that. But what that speaker didn't understand is that it is necessary to grow an economy sustainably with all that means. And that's where he was wrong also about his comments about the Green Party. Secondly, of course, the benefits of an economy must be fairly distributed, and that's one of the things that I think this budget simply doesn't do. But I want to particularly refer to two subjects amongst these appropriations, and the first is the National Cycleway. There has been a reduction in commitment by National over the years, and it was 4 years ago that National campaigned on a National Cycleway as a means of supporting tourism. But there's been no real supporting strategy for that, and therefore no real substantial result. It was mostly puffery, and we see in this appropriation even less commitment to that particular strategy. Nevertheless, some good works were done, but not enough, Mr Speaker. And there is a need for innovation in support of tourism, because tourism under this government is simply failing. Tourism, with the Prime Minister's support even, is simply failing in this country and not succeeding at all. So innovations of this kind and more innovation is needed to support tourism. It would in fact be better if the government was to apply this allocation and more to the support of urban cycling as a good means of supporting transport strategies and also tourism, because cycling is good for tourism within urban areas as well. But the second subject I want to move on to, Mr Speaker, is the allocation for water storage and investment. And water issues, Mr Speaker, are huge issues globally and will be for the whole of this century. Huge issues also within New Zealand, and I might say, Mr Speaker, that there are particularly huge issues where I live in Canterbury, which has 70% of the nation's irrigated land. But, Mr Speaker, irrigation schemes have been struggling in New Zealand, and there are many reasons for that. One of them is the consent processes, which are often far too long, produce far too little benefit, and sometimes some perverse outcomes. And I might also say that the rules applied by regional councils in this country are too often irrational and confusing and seem to move from year to year and make it difficult for projects to get going. But access to water resources is the main challenge, and storage of them, which is one of the purposes of the allocation in this bill, is a very difficult issue. Many legal challenges, a lot of competition for water, and the storage problems, Mr Speaker, still remain and have not been properly addressed by this government at all. I would like to say that I'm involved personally with one of these schemes, the Central Plains Water Scheme, a 60,000 hectare scheme. I'm the chairman of a trust which is to hold the consents for that scheme. And the bottom line for that is sustainable development. A sustainable farming protocol is what the application was based on and has been granted on. Enforceable under contract and through the consents. But, Mr Speaker, it took 10 years and it took $10 million plus to get that far. And that was without any government assistance whatsoever. So after all those consenting barriers and all the barriers put in place by regional councils, we still in Canterbury have no substantial water storage. There is some strategy, Mr Speaker, but very little. And the government response, as we see in this bill, has been completely inadequate. A small amount for the purpose of assisting schemes to final design stage, and a capital provision of somewhere between $400 million and $450 million. But in terms of New Zealand's requirements, Mr Speaker, that is actually a drop in the bucket and is a completely inadequate provision for the development of sustainable agriculture through properly developed water schemes for irrigation in this country. So what we need from the government is a lot more than we have seen in the budget, and in particular in this particular allocation. So it's absolutely vital for New Zealand's future, and it's vital that these provisions be sustainable. Mr Speaker, the government needs to do a lot more.
I call the honourable member David Bennett.